For 20 years, life with Joanne. The last couple of years felt unusually quiet, which I justified as commonplace. We reached 18, enrolled in college but remained at home, and gradually our dialogues with his mother dwindled, much like a creek in August heat. Evenings were spent in separate spaces, separate screens. The occasional goodnight was tossed casually down the hallway. However, that bracelet introduced a fissure into this tableau. Upon closer observation, the details emerged. Joanne had become less frequent at home, occasionally vanishing for 3 evenings each week to meet a friend downtown or drive to Chattanooga to see her sister Margaret. Her attire had grown more deliberate, hinting at someone conscious of another's opinion, and her phone's location had changed. It used to reside face-up on the counter during cooking. Now it moved hidden in her back pocket, charging in the bedroom with a half-closed door. A few days following our bracelet discussion, while emptying trash to the curb, I came across a compact box in the bin. Its rigid cardboard interior, upholstered with velvet, was designed for a single jewelry item. On its base, a label with a name and phone number. Not a chain store, but an artisanal workshop located on Nashville's south side. I contacted her from my trucking yard office the next morning, the coffee on my desk growing cold as I spoke. A friendly voice answered, indicative of a modest operation with background tool noises audible. I explained that my wife had received a stunning bracelet and I wanted to order a coordinating ring for our anniversary. Could she retrieve the original order so the styles would match? With impressive speed, she located it in less than a minute. Then I provided her with my last name and mentioned the order should be under that. She tapped a few keys, paused, and informed me there was no match. That bracelet had been purchased under a different name, Victor Sims, using his card and collected personally. She hadn't intended to disclose anything. She merely rectified what she believed was a minor misunderstanding. I thanked her, admitted my confusion with another transaction, and ended the call. Then I sat there, the phone resting in my lap, fixed on the wall behind my desk. To be clear, Victor Sims had no significance for me. He wasn't part of my sphere or Joanne's professional network, nor a guest at any barbecue we hosted. She was a complete stranger. Yet this fact resonated more profoundly than if it had been someone I knew. It suggested that Joanne possessed an entire existence, intertwined yet hidden from ours, and I hadn't even suspected its presence until a bracelet appeared on her wrist. That night, I searched for Victor Sims online. He ran a high-end wine bar in downtown Nashville, frequented by locals and tourists alike. His social media was filled with images of wine bottles, cheese boards, and crowded venues. At nightfall, I navigated there and settled at the bar like an ordinary patron, opted for a red drink, and my gaze wandered. The backdrop of the counter held framed pictures of Victor with various distributors, regulars clinking glasses during weekly gatherings on Fridays. There in the second row's center was Joanne. She laughed, her wine glass angled casually, standing near enough to Victor that their shoulders seemed almost conjoined. In my 20 years of hauling trucks, I had witnessed numerous unsettling sights. However, my wife's face on another man's wall carried a unique sting. I drained the wine, settled the bill in cash, and drove back home. Upon arriving at our driveway, I summoned our family's navigation app. For years, we had shared our locations without giving it much thought. The bar's address surfaced numerous times over the past year, on Wednesdays and Fridays with rare exceptions. Each journey corresponded to a specific night, when she'd told me she was visiting a friend or going to see Margaret. This wasn't just a casual affair running amok. For over a year, I lived a dual existence, managing it as meticulously as a second job. My family's phone plan was in my name, and I always had been the account holder. The next morning, I accessed the online account portal and extracted call details for Joanne's line, dating back 6 months. Victor's number stood out right away. Lengthy evening conversations, sometimes lasting 40 minutes, occasionally even stretching beyond an hour. Nothing unexpected there. But then I spotted another number. It appeared almost as frequently as Victor's, but the pattern was distinct. Brief calls, lasting 2 or 3 minutes, scattered throughout the daytime hours. These calls seemed to be synchronized in a way that caught my attention. Nearly everyone contacted right before or after speaking with Victor, suggesting schedule coordination. Upon running the number through a reverse lookup, I discovered it belonged to Margaret, Joanne's younger sister, who resides in Chattanooga. Now here's where things get intriguing. 6 months ago, Margaret had gone through a divorce. Joanne mentioned that her husband Glenn had suddenly departed, which seemed unexpected to me. She drove to Chattanooga several times to assist Margaret, and I didn't inquire about any of the trips. Sisterly support during a divorce, what husband would argue with that? However, call logs suggested a different narrative. Prior to Victor's number appearing, there was only one call from Margaret per month. Then within a short span, daily calls began, brief and formal, not the casual chatter between sisters. This arrangement appeared too strategic, and the timing seemed uncanny. I still had Glenn's contact number from a few Christmas gatherings at Joanne's mother's house in Knoxville. We weren't particularly close, just holiday greetings and the occasional beer at barbecues, but we managed to get along fine. I phoned him one Wednesday afternoon without preamble. "Glenn, I discovered something in Joanne's phone records that I believe you are aware of. Why did you truly leave Margaret?" The line fell silent. When he responded, his voice was monotone. For some time, I had been anticipating a call. He divulged the details piece by piece. It turned out that Margaret was engaged in an affair. When Glenn discovered this, he uncovered something more extensive than a single infidelity. Joanne had been hiding Margaret's actions the whole time. Every night, Margaret claimed to be at Joanne's house watching movies. Instead, she was elsewhere. Yet, the mirror revealed truths about both parties. Whenever Joanne supposedly visited her sister in Chattanooga for comfort, she was with Victor. Two sisters, two deceptions working in perfect synchronization. Glenn excised them all from his life but lacked concrete evidence to implicate Joanne as well. He merely saw a pattern. Then he paused. They constructed it, Reed. It was more than just a lapse or a moment of weakness, it was a project. Meticulously planned, coordinated, and maintained. Akin to organizing a route schedule or drafting a contract. But what they created was a device for deceiving the two men who had placed their trust in them. I gave myself 3 days, not for mourning, not for consolation through alcohol, not for conversation, but to process this revelation. In 3 days, accomplished what took 15 years, resolving an issue methodically. On Monday morning, I found myself face-to-face with a divorce lawyer before Joanne had even finished her first cup of coffee at work. By midday, the legal paperwork was drafted, our house divided on paper, joint accounts separated, and most significantly, the business safeguarded. The LLC had been under my name since prior to the wedding, independent property from the start. The attorney affirmed Joanne held no claim over the company. On Tuesday and Wednesday, I removed my belongings while she was at the clinic. For over a year, we'd been sleeping in separate rooms, so my clothes were in the guest closet, tools in the garage, paperwork in my office, with nothing from her side of the house. Signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment closer to the yard. Joanne returned both evenings unaware of any changes. She hadn't looked at that house for quite some time. Then I called Margaret, keeping the conversation brief. I conversed with Glenn. I understand your system's mechanics. Discussed the specifics with your lawyer. I suspected she wouldn't alert Joanne since acknowledging the agreement would allow their mother in Knoxville to discover it. A traditional family, church attendance every Sunday. This revelation was more daunting for Margaret than anything Joanne was dealing with. Thus, she hesitated, preserved herself, and left her sister ignorant. On Friday evening, Joanne descended in heels and an unfamiliar dress. Her hair was styled, and she wore a perfume I'd never bought for her. She collected her keys and flung the remark over her shoulder as if she'd uttered it countless times before, headed to Margaret's. "Don't keep me waiting." I stood by the kitchen island with my arms folded. I didn't raise my voice, didn't impede her path. Inform Victor that I greeted him at the bar, and extend my regards to Margaret from Glenn. Her stride halted abruptly. Not a gradual understanding, but instantaneous, like a circuit breaker tripping. A single sentence, and all the barriers she maintained between those realms crumbled simultaneously. Joanne, the names, Victor, the bar, Margaret, Glenn were all simultaneously revealed to her, as if by accident. She hadn't realized I had spoken with Glenn. She assumed, even if I suspected something, the most I could know was a name. However, I knew the intricacies, the sister alibi, coordinated calls, and the entire plan. I placed the divorce documents on the counter alongside her keys and close by my apartment key. I met her gaze. I had moved out 3 days ago, signed the lease on Tuesday. Lawyers have been handling everything since Monday. I had already departed, Joanne, you merely failed to notice. The same way you didn't notice my Fridays. Joanne grabbed her phone before the documents ceased sliding across the counter. She dialed Margaret. No response. She called again, only to hear a voicemail. A third attempt, and she was met with the same result. Each unanswered ring seemed more significant, and I observed the instant when Joanne comprehended that Margaret wasn't simply unavailable. Margaret was absent. First contacting Margaret, she swiftly outpaced Joanne in calculations. If she took that call, they'd be publicly linked, involving their mother, lawyers, and entire family. Declining the call, disconnecting, and leaving was Margaret's choice. The initial flaw in a mechanism running smoothly for over a year emerged from self-protection, not morality. Joanne then attempted to reach Victor. He responded, but the discussion ended swiftly, revealing tension audible from the kitchen. To Victor, Joanne represented a woman who arrived on Fridays with a cheerful demeanor and tales of a remote marriage. Unaware of the sister network, synchronized alibis, and precise timed calls, he now was informed. His perception of their relationship transformed into something less romantic and more tactical. I grabbed my coat, passed her by, and drove to the yard. On Friday, sorting the delivery shipment, two drivers had schedule adjustments. The world doesn't halt because your wife's fabricated story unraveled. On Saturday afternoon, I returned to Victor's bar. The sign was off, hours before opening, but the door was open and I could see him cleaning the counter. I entered, pulled a stool, and sat facing him as if ordering a drink. He gazed at me as one does when confronting an unavoidable predicament since the previous night. I didn't raise my voice, didn't posture. I conveyed a single message to him, just as I would to a driver considering work with a questionable employer. Your wife had been covering for her sister while she was destroying Glenn's marriage. They operated in harmony with double alibis, synchronized calls, a timetable as tight as my dispatch board. Are you certain about who you let into your life? I pushed the stool away and left. I didn't visit to defend Joanne or intimidate him. I came so Victor would contemplate one thought only. The woman he had been dating orchestrated a network of deception, involving her own sister for over a year. If she was capable of deceiving a husband for 20 years, she could do it to anyone. The truck roared to life upon the first key turn and I drove towards the yard. A contract with a furniture manufacturer in Murfreesboro lay on my desk, requiring my signature by Monday. 12 trucks don't park themselves. The ensuing weeks following that Friday passed swiftly. Joanne cohabited with Victor not out of romance, but due to lack of other options. The house was listed for sale within a month, my share secured in the legal documents. Each truck, each contract, every penny of the business remained where it rightfully belonged. Margaret fell silent. 2 weeks later, she contacted their mother in Knoxville first, attempting to manipulate her narrative before Joanne could. Their mother called Joanne that evening for several minutes. That family fractured along a divide that will not heal quickly. Glenn messaged me the following week with a single word: finally. Victor and Joanne's relationship lasted only 3 months. The secrecy held it together. Remove the clandestine phone calls and the weekends, and there wasn't much left. She departed before summer's end. Around a month into the new residence, we unexpectedly arrived on a Saturday with a toolkit, helping me wrestle with a bookshelf for 2 hours. Somewhere between the third stripped screw and the fourth hardware store trip, he fell silent. Son, I saw your mother 3 months ago downtown, outside a wine bar with a man I didn't know. I drove past, he said, remained silent, thinking perhaps I was mistaken. He trailed off. At 18 years old, burdened by that secret, petrified that one sentence could shatter his family, I looked at him. You should not have had to bear that burden alone. That realization was enough. Sunday morning. The apartment still reeked of fresh paint and cardboard, and we returned with a bag of provisions and an expression hinting he intended to stay for the meal. Afternoon was spent installing the final shelf, bickering over directions, passing around the Allen wrench, drinking cold sodas from cans since I hadn't purchased glasses yet. From my bag, I retrieved an old picture frame I had stored at the truck yard for years. It depicted Wheeze in his Little League uniform, age 12, mid-swing, the background a blur. Joanne was unaware of its existence. It had always been perched above my desk at the base, out of reach for her to touch, claim, or take. I placed it on the new shelf and stepped back. Wheeze noticed it. He shook his head, smiled. That night, I cooked while he prepared a salad, and we dined at a table with only 2 place settings, none needing an explanation. Through the window, Nashville sprawled under an orange sky. My apartment, my kitchen, my son seated across the table, my life steering in a direction I chose. The bracelet had cost Victor a few $100s. It resulted in Joanne losing her marriage, home, and sibling. Yet, for me, it brought the one aspect I hadn't realized I was lacking: a distinct path ahead without anyone obscuring my view.